I'm live. Hello. God, I always when it says, "Are you ready to go live?" There's always that moment of, "No, I'm not really, but I'll do it." So hi, hello. So we're live, live. A while since I've gone live on LinkedIn and stuff. Kind of lost my mojo a little bit for a while, but something I want to talk about this week. So you might see me popping up quite a bit, really. Well, you will do. Apologies for that. But yeah, this week is MS Awareness Week from the 25th of April to the 1st of May. And as many of you will know, and many of you probably don't, I do live with a condition. So I wanted to, as I'm in a place where I feel like I can share about this stuff and I feel strong enough to, I wanted to put a series of things out this week to talk about MS, what it is, the impact it has on people's lives, how it's different for everybody, what have been my experiences living with it, working with it. And so the first one today is about my story to diagnosis, which is a long one. It was complicated, but you know what? It's something that, it's good to be aware of, like just how hard and how many hoops you have to jump through to get some answers. And it's become a 5-part series over on Instagram because it is that long. So I'll see whether I do it in 5 or 1 or 2 or what for you guys, but I'll see where I get to. But yeah, MS is different for everyone, and getting a diagnosis and knowing what to attribute, what symptoms to attribute to it, is very hard because there is no kind of set rule of this, and this symptom are definitely caused by it. There's some things they do know, there's some where it's really, really unclear. So it's one hell of a battle, and to be honest, the diagnosis is only the start. I tell you, honestly, and I will caveat it with saying I'm a fairly mild case. I've been very lucky, and I've managed to look after myself enough to keep it that way. But a lot of people struggle a lot more than I do. But I feel more confident in using my voice to talk about this stuff these days. Because I talk about it a lot in the book and stuff, and it's giving me that kind of, I feel as though empowering it is. So there we go. So it's actually like properly written up. Because honestly, I had to go through all my like books and my notes and everything to try and work out exactly what had gone on, because you can't remember it all. But here we go. Let's see if you sit through this, and feel free to ask any questions if you want on the doings. So here we go. It was August 2009, and my first day, my first proper teaching job after training, when I started to go blind. It was a boiling hot summer's day, and I was shattered. I'd just got back from 2 weeks in Canada with a group of girl guides, and I was enrolling students in the sports hall at my new college. My head started pounding, and I felt faint. All I could do was down some water, carry on, and hope it passed. But it got worse. I thought I was going to be sick. I started feeling dizzy, and my vision suddenly started going grey. It was like a curtain of fog descending. I made my polite excuses, saying I needed air for a moment, and went outside, hoping some fresh air might help. But as I stood outside, I felt even worse. And with the bright light of the sun, my vision was even foggier. The pounding in my head was like a drill burring through my brain, and everything started spinning. But what could I do? It was my first day in the job. I needed to make a good impression. I couldn't let them know I was ill. Certainly couldn't go home, and I couldn't have driven anyway. This new job was 40 miles from home. So one of my new colleagues saw me outside and came to check I was okay. I explained I felt dizzy and had a really bad headache, and he sent me off to the staff room to take a break and get some drink, and said he'd cover me for me on enrolment. So I did as I was told, but it got no better. The pain was excruciating, and luckily someone in the staff room had a lot of painkillers and passed some my way. The pain in my head and eye eased enough that I could sort of semi-function for the rest of the day and then drag myself home. But on waking the next day, it was even worse, and I had to drag myself to work regardless. I spent the first few weeks in that job downing painkillers and panicking. What on earth was going on? I'd been to the doctor, and he said, "You've got a migraine." But it wasn't that, and I knew it wasn't that. 2 weeks before all this had started, I'd also been to the opticians, and there was nothing wrong there, so I knew it wasn't just like a vision issue to do with needing glasses or something. My vision was exactly the same as it had been before, but I thought maybe it was worth going back to them. So I went back to opticians number 2, and they couldn't see anything that might be causing it. So I went back to the doctors, still no help. They still said it was a migraine. So I went to opticians number 2. They couldn't see anything, so back to the doctors I went. He finally referred me to, said I might need to go to ophthalmology, and I had a hospital appointment. He confirmed I had little colour vision or any vision at all, but couldn't see anything wrong. Again, I was told it was a migraine. By this point, it'd been going on for about 3 weeks, and who has the hell has a migraine for that long? In a last-ditch desperate attempt for help and answers, I tried yet another optician's, number 3. And thanks to Vision Express, we finally got a clue. They do a test that other opticians don't, and in the back of my eye, they could see some swelling on the optic nerve. The optician wrote me a letter to go back to the doctors with, containing the instructions of exactly where they needed to look, what they had found, and how urgent it was. It turns out that magic machine that found the problem at Vision Express was also right there in the ophthalmologist's room. He just hadn't used it on me. It was there all along, waiting to give me the answers. I was finally referred to neurology too, but advised it would be a long wait till an appointment. In the meantime, the eye eased. After 5 or 6 weeks, my vision returned and the relief was immense, but I still didn't know why it had happened or whether it would come back. I got an appointment for November 2009, but as the symptoms had eased, there was little he could see or do that might have caused it. So I was sent on my way with, you guessed it, it's just a migraine. So 5 months later, in April 2010, it started again. The fog descended, the colour vision disappeared, and this time I was left with about 70% blind in one eye for weeks. And it was a rapid decline. I went back to the doctors and he rang the hospital to get me an appointment for the next day. I was given a barrage of tests, only to get the same answer. I can't see anything wrong. It must be a migraine again. I started to wonder if they thought it was all in my head. It turns out it was, but not in that way. As my eye worsened beyond how it had been previously, back to the doctors I went. He rang to get me a hospital appointment the next day, and I was given a barrage of vision tests, failed them all, but yet again they couldn't see anything wrong. So after a lot of umming and ahhing, finally I was referred for an MRI scan. They put the referral through and I left the hospital. It took weeks to get the MRI. After weeks of this latest migraine, I felt desperate. One Friday, the remaining bit of my vision disappeared and I was panicked. The battle for answers picked up again. I rang for an ophthalmology appointment, but was told there was nothing they could do nothing I could do to get seen, despite having a letter and an emergency number which was supposed to guarantee me that. So off I trekked to the hospital anyway, in a state of distress, determined to get anyone to see me. But still, they said no one would. So I sat on the floor by reception and refused to move until I was seen, in tears. They threatened security would remove me. I said, bring it on. I threatened to come back every day. Eventually, an ophthalmologist saw me on the floor crying, took pity and took me in his room. He managed to access my MRI results and went quiet. He said I had to wait for my ophthalmologist to get back off his holiday to discuss the results, that he couldn't do it. But I wasn't having that. He could see them right there, so why wasn't he telling me? My mind went into overdrive. I eventually got out of him that optic neuritis was confirmed, but they'd also picked something else up. But I had to wait for my doctor to come back and refer me for steroid treatment. I was signed off for 2 weeks without understanding any more. It turns out this had been relapse 1 and 2. There were 4 possibilities of what could have been going on, and at 28 years old, they were all terrifying prospects. My appointment with the doctor I'd been waiting to see got put back by a couple of months, and I just couldn't sit there and wait. So I had managed to argue my way into another earlier appointment with yet another doctor, number 4 in ophthalmology alone. He now said optic neuritis was the most likely diagnosis, but not definite, so going back on what I'd just been told. The swelling on my optic nerve could cause permanent damage. It might not, who knows? They couldn't treat me as they needed to investigate what was going on first, and I had to wait for the referral to neurology. So I was lost and confused, still no solution in sight, pun intended, and it felt like a backward step. It was also the first time that MS was mentioned, and he just casually dropped it in. Followed by, we've ruled out a brain tumour, cancer and severe nerve damage though. Isn't that great? Wait a minute, they were options? And if that's the case, how long it was taking so long to get treatment? Sure, there should be more urgency. And what are the possible options left? He just wasn't giving me those answers. So mine went into overdrive. Google searches went into overdrive. Never a good idea. Don't recommend that. And the only option was to refer me to the neurologist again. But I was warned it would be a long wait and my symptoms might have gone by the time I got it. So the neurology referral came through quickly, and I was able to at least feel some progress in that respect. The neurologist explained he suspected I had optic neuritis too, and then the problem with my vision was caused by swelling in the optic nerve. Okay, I thought I can handle that. But then he went on to explain that optic neuritis is usually the first presenting symptom of multiple sclerosis. Okay, that I cannot handle. That would be the likely diagnosis, and they needed to order more tests. So I told them to do it pronto. After an excruciating wait, we're now nearly a year after the first symptoms had started, I finally got to see a neurologist in July 2010. He looked at my MRI scan and declared, "It's inconclusive." There was a 30-40% chance it was MS, but they couldn't really be sure. So, and this is, of course, my wonky body, so of course there were complications. But he confirmed he could see lesions on my brain, but there weren't as many as he would have expected, and that most people have 1 or 2. I had about 5 or 6. He expected more. He couldn't even be sure if some were lesions. Apparently, I've moved in the MRI scan and it made it a little bit blurred. But the lesions didn't present as expected, and he wanted more opinions. So he wanted to present my MRI scan at a meeting of senior neurologists he had in a few weeks to get their take on it. So I had to wait a bit longer for an answer. But get back in touch once he'd had this meeting. Anyway, the date of that meeting came and went, no response. I had to keep ringing him, and eventually he did ring me. But I thanked him and left, my head spinning with terminology and everything. In the meantime, my vision got worse again, so I was sent back to ophthalmology to see doctor number 4 again. He put me on steroid treatment, and within 3 days, I saw a massive improvement in my vision, but still all was not well. It was extended for another 4 weeks, and I was told that steroids only treat the symptoms, not the underlying cause, so there could still be damage taking place. And this reprieve would only be brief. At the end of July, I was still waiting for the chat to happen about my MRI results, and during a call with the neurologist, he helpfully informed me that whatever the result is, it won't make no difference to your treatment anyway. I'm just checking the facts. This felt like another blow, a loss of hope. Why was everything hinging on this scan if it was to be of no hope? So after a week of improvement, my vision started to go again, but I also started with a bad cough, and they suspected it was an infection, so I was put on antibiotics, and all investigations had to halt until that had cleared, so we knew what was caused by the infection and what wasn't. As the infection lifted, so did the grey eyes slowly, just in time for a vision test, which I could have actually done with the symptoms being there, and I had, in August 2010, I had an evoked potential test. I sat with sensors attached all over my head while basically watching a chessboard with the black and white squares flipping back and forth. But it measures the speed that messages go from your eyes to your brain, and it can detect lesions before symptoms even appear or before they appear on other tests. Sure enough, the foggy eye was very slow, but it still didn't give the results they expected. So still nothing was confirmed. In late September, now in another job, because the previous one had been maternity cover for a year, it started again. The headaches, the pain moved my eye, the deterioration of vision, it was particularly bad in the morning. I lost all colour vision, and the fog got thicker and thicker until I could barely see in the left eye. Eventually, I was about 90% blind in the eye. All I could see were large blobs of shapes and some haunting silhouettes moving in my periphery. But there was another change, a delightful new symptom, and that was a feeling of constantly like scalding water was being poured down my legs. And that symptom changed everything. On the 25th of October 2010, I was sent back to hospital. With the addition of this new symptom, the neurologist was now confident to diagnose MS. But I still had to wait for final confirmation for these scans that weren't going to confirm anything anyway. I was referred for another MRI scan to find out if the back problems I'd also been having were related to the MS, and he treated me for the sensory symptoms. And I was referred to an MS nurse. There was so much activity in one day after a year, well over a year of nothing. I was really overwhelmed. Just as I got home, the MRI department rang, saying that they'd actually had a cancellation that morning. Could I go back to the hospital for my other MRI? Of course, I bloody would. I raced down and had my second one, this time on my spine. At this point, everything started to hit. It had taken 14 months to get to the point of diagnosis, and the actual final diagnosis was delivered via a 2-sentence letter in the post, which basically just said, as I said I would, I chatted about your MRI at the meeting of senior neurologists. MS is confirmed as the outcome. That was it. Oh, no, an appointment letter will follow for neurology soon. That was sentence 2. So that was how it was actually delivered on a Saturday morning through my postbox in a very blunt letter. So if you've sat for all that, round of applause to you. But like I say, it just gives an idea of the battle that you can go on with, and the confusion, and the fact that there is no like one single thing that leads to diagnosis. They don't just see like a certain lesion even. Lesions can be anywhere in your brain, anywhere in your spine. I'll talk about this a bit more in some future videos. but yeah, it's so totally different for everyone. It is a really hard journey to go through, and you do have to be pushy. You have to sit on the floor in corridors and shout a little bit sometimes to get heard, because, like I say, I mean, 15 months of being told I had a migraine was crazy. So yeah, thank you for listening. If you have sat through that, and if you have any questions, do fire them in the comments underneath, and I'll come in and answer them as and when. And if there's anything you'd like to know, particularly about MS, let me know, and I will try and cover it in some videos this week. God, apologies about my hair. I'm going to the gym in a minute, so I couldn't even bother brushing it. But yeah, I hope, I really, if you see lots of posts about MS Awareness Week this week, really try and help get the voices heard, and not just me, I mean, like anybody. And let's, battle some of the stigma and the presumptions that people make about MS, and the ignorance that can sometimes happen from certain people. And let's, really get people understanding what it's like to live with the condition. And thank you for sticking with me, and I shall be back with more. I totally forgot I hadn't actually finished writing my story up there, and I've given you it all, and then I just had to make the last bit up. Oh God, winging it, always winging it. Anyway, much love to you. I hope you have a great week and you're settling back in after Easter, and I shall speak to you more this week. Bye.